They're all dead. Don't have to wait this time, 'cause I'm giving up on my sense of control.
It's that time. Union Smack returns right here, retro style again. Our monthly retro roundup, not in your house, but we like to throw a little wild card retro episode in this week. And that's where we are again, going back to the Royal Rumble 1994. It's Royal Rumble season, a week away. Before we get to that, I'm joined as always by my co-host. It would not be Union Smack without the man himself right here, the maniac, Matt Tennant. What's going on, bud? How you been? Where can everyone catch you? And I hope you're taking a deep breath because we have even more links to plug this week.
Don't. Okay, so, all the good usual stuff. You can follow me on Twitter at BruiserMates. Go to at Union Smack, our official Twitter account, which we keep forgetting to plug, Travis, but I remembered this week. Lulu.com for my books, The Undertaker, A Trip Down Death Valley, NXT UK Year 1. Union Smack at BigCartel.com for all your Hibiki TMD merchandise needs. Fuck, I'm drying up already. ProWrestlingTees.com/Union Smack for the official Union Smack shirt. And just go to Podbean.com. No, don't actually. Go to unionsmack.podbean.com and all the links to where we're available are in little logos at the top of the page. We can also be found on Anchor.com and also on Stitcher.com. And you can find us on Audible as well, but I've only just found that out today, so I'll have to look into that a little bit more.
Indeed, you walked a fine line there. You're almost blown up 2 seconds in. You're like the alley catch of plugs for a second. But you did it. Hell yeah.
Oh, God.
Thank you guys for all the downloads across Podbean, Stitcher, all those last week. Really appreciate it. Growing a little by little, more and more each week. It's exciting to be across the boards. This episode, as you're listening to us right now, you're actually dropping. The Royal Rumble is tonight. Matt, I have never, and I've sat through 95. I've sat through 2011. It was probably shitty. I think that was a bad one. This is probably the least I've ever cared about a Royal Rumble match because it's probably the least I've ever been checked out from WWE in general. I just don't care who wins. It's probably going to be Brock Lesnar. We'll do like a mini predictions thing here. Brock Lesnar.
I mean, we were talking before we came on there, and the most I can see is either Lesnar or Styles. Obviously, I'd love Pete Dunne to win. That's not going to happen, at least not this year. But, I can see Lesnar. I can see Styles. I can't see many more winning it. It's one of them events where I'm looking forward to it, but I don't really care about it. Do you know what I mean? I'm in that no man's land.
It's that too, and it's just this. I mean, look at what they've done to 2/3 of the New Day. Every time it seems like lately they try to give a new, younger talent the mantle, it's kind of just comes off as a thank you for your service, and it's all forgotten about like a month after. I mean, Big E's already back to being in just a tag team, doing nothing.
Yeah, exactly. So how can you care about these people when WWE clearly don't?
It's amazing, and I think it speaks to just how mundane the modern products become, Matt. To how much different a time we're going back. Right now, let's do it. Let's not depress ourselves with modern. This show might depress us, to be honest. But how much a show back then that featured talents, like just some of the ridiculous gimmicks on the show excited me so much more than modern WWE. Just speaks to how bad it is.
I know, it's like... Doink the Clown and Tatanka. It's like people listen to this are going, "You got excited about them?" And it's like, yes, we did. We genuinely got excited when Doink came to a curtain, or when Tatanka raced down the aisle and danced around the ring.
Mhm.
And watching this event, it was like, all right, it wasn't great, no spoilers, but it was a damn sight more entertaining than what we have to put up with today.
I think the key word is just easy watch. It's a much easier watch. Like, it is a straight up chore to not fall asleep during Monday Night Raw. And I just can't do it anymore. And I haven't done it. And I don't see myself watching it anytime soon. It's ironic that the biggest match of the year in '94 takes place in the tiniest little state, Matt, Rhode Island. Rhode Island didn't get a ton of pay-per-views, so it's really unique to see this.
Yes. Yeah, and the arena wasn't that big as well. What was it? The Providence Civic Center. I've got written down here, and it's like thinking back and looking back after this, there wasn't that many like from Rhode Island. And I don't live in America, Travis, but I'm assuming and imagining Rhode Island isn't the biggest state or whatever it is in America.
It's literally the smallest state.
Oh, there you go. And you choose to hold your second biggest event in the smallest state in America.
Like, if you ever find yourself
Christ.
bored enough to look at a map, like, because you got to be fucking bored, that bored, to just start looking at maps for fun, check out the U.S., and Rhode Island's just this tiny, literally like a chiclet. You know what I mean? It's so tiny. Yeah, I will say one thing about this crowd, as usual with early 90s crowds in all promotions, totally invested in everything that was going on for the most part. I'd say 90% of the stuff. And we've seen some shitty shit on this show, but they're still behind it, so.
Yes, and talking of shitty shit, Travis, I know you didn't get this on the network version, but I got, unusually, all 30 grueling minutes of the countdown to the Royal Rumble and Todd Pettingill. And I have to say, this was the highlight of the show for me. And I know we've got some classic moments coming up, but I've been waiting just to mention this. So the dark match on Royal Rumble 94 was the Brooklyn Brawler versus Jim Powers. Okay, now I didn't see this match in its entirety, but Todd was stood at ringside for about, I just said 3.5, maybe 4 minutes. And for the entirety of his time at ringside, all you saw was the Brooklyn Brawler with Jim Powers in a headlock. Like, and I know for a fact this match didn't go much longer than like that time he was stood at ringside.
So, wait a minute, slow down. So they shoot Todd Pettingill, like, standing there, like, hyping and behind him the match is going on?
Yeah, he stood right at ringside. And
so the match is the afterthought, right?
Oh, absolutely. They don't care about the match. That's just there for the fans. It's like Todd is running down all the matches, and behind him, all you can see is the Brooklyn Brawler with Jim Powers in a headlock for about 4 minutes. And every time they cut back to Todd, he's still got him in that fucking headlock.
Poor Lombardi. My God. That guy was so loyal to that company. Look how they treated him. That's hilarious.
I know, just like shit. But I have to say, that wasn't the highlight of this countdown show. That came when old Todd was up in one of the boxes. Oh my God, I can't believe they showed this. So he's up in one of the special boxes, and then the camera pulls back to reveal 4, quote unquote contest winners in a hot tub. Only they are 3 oldest men you could possibly find, and 1 young woman in a bathing suit, and she couldn't have been clinging on to the side of that hot tub and looking more scared if she tried.
What the hell's going on up in those boxes and arenas?
I have no idea. But just the look on her face, and like 3 horny old men and her, she's just like, can I get out of here now, please?
You sure it wasn't just Renee Goulet,
Oh,
Jack
God.
Lanza, and Lord Alfred Hayes in there with her?
Oh, now I'm not going to get that out of my fucking head. Thank you very much.
God rest
Jesus.
2 out of 3 of their souls. Well, yeah, I'm kind of. Usually, I'm glad that I don't have to watch these things and you do, but I have to see all this now. I had no clue about any of that. Holy shit.
You do. Oh my god!
That's
I'll
tremendous.
have to like record it for you on my phone and send it to you by email or
Wait, so
something.
what was the contest? Like, if you win the contest, you get to take a bath while watching the Royal Rumble with some chick?
I have, it didn't even mention what the contest was. All he introduced them as was three contest winners. These three lechy old men just looking at this woman like, oh, fresh meat.
Did we get to
Oh.
hear from our lucky winners at all?
No, no, not at all.
Damn it. Well, now that we've shaken all the shit
Oh,
off our
God.
shoes before we step inside to the house after taking the dog out, this pay-per-view 94 Royal Rumble kicked off with
Tatanka versus Bam Bam Bigelow. And this was originally, as they do say, was meant to be Tatanka versus Ludwig Borger. But Ludwig Borger really injured his ankle a few days before this at Madison Square Garden against Rick Steiner. And that just ended his WWF career, really. It took him out of WrestleMania, where he was meant to face Earthquake. And that was it for him. No, not a great loss, obviously, but unfortunate for him because it cost him a lot of money.
I'm still pissed off to this day that we never got Earthquake versus Borga on a proper stage.
I knew you were looking forward to that, Travis. Just heartbreaking.
It's also kind of shitty for Tatanka too, like that entire undefeated streak got beaten by Borga with one finger and then he never got a chance to get his heat back.
I don't know.
Ever.
It's just, I mean, I'm assuming that there was a long-term plan there, like Tatanka would have beat him at the Rumble, but then, Ludwig Borg would have lost all of his. No, I was going to say he'd have lost all of his momentum, but he never had anything. Like after that victory over Tatanka, the death that was the storyline of Lex Luger, and he was going nowhere fast.
These two are really odd because on paper, because we've seen Tatanka and Shawn Michaels at Mania the year before, they had a really good match. We know what Bam Bam's capable of. I would think these guys would always have meshed really well together and have some pretty decent matches. Chris Chavez was a good enough worker. Bam Bam, obviously a hybrid big man, very agile. I'm not that the matches were always shit, but I feel like there was just always like they never went to the third gear in their matches, you know?
Yeah. No, this was. I thought. I mean, like, obviously, I hadn't watched this event for a few years, and my recollection of this opening match was okay. But when we watched it back, it was sloppy. It was like mistimed. I mean, the crowd were into it. Every time Tatanka came back, they were off their seats. But I don't know. There's something about looking back at these events, Travis. This stuff isn't as good as we remember them to be.
I know, that's what I'm saying. It's like these guys should have had much more chemistry together than they did, and they just sometimes that just doesn't happen, you know? I think the best part of me for this match is the amazing Luna Vachon.
Oh, definitely. I think I put out a tweet actually while I was watching this to like praise Luna Vachon. She was brilliant. Even when she led Bam Bam Bigelow down the aisle into the Rumble match,
Yeah.
it's like main focus on her.
She's got to be in like my top 10 of all time at just best at their gimmick. Like you would really think this woman is insane.
Yeah,
And after watching Dark Side of the Ring, to be honest, she was a little bit.
definitely. No spoilers. I've not seen that yet. Like, if I can find it online, I'll watch them. But you're right. Vachon, Sherry Martel, just why don't we get people workers like that anymore?
They were one of a kind for sure. Like we said though, this match, the crowd was into it. The crowd loved Tatanka. Tatanka was always pretty over. I don't know. It's just I just give this grade a You know what I mean? I would have opened this show up with Razor and IRS. I think Razor would have got This would have been a better like come down match in between a concessions match for fans to get a drink or something.
I mean, I can see that, but at the same time, it's like Tatanka. I'm not going to say he's had more charisma than Razor Ramon, but I think charging down the aisle, the theme song, it naturally got people going. It's just unfortunate the bell rang. You know, he was a fine worker, but this match, no, it wasn't the best. And Bam Bam Bigelow and Tatanka had better matches than this. Like, yeah, let's not dispute that. We've seen them have better matches than this, shorter matches than this, but it was what it was. It did a job, shall we say?
Yep. Where did that take us to next, Matt?
Tatanka wins, by the way, in a terrible weak finish with a crossbody off the top rope. Just yucky finish. That took us to a video package, a very short video package of Brett and Owen. There's the story, of the Hart brothers breaking up since Survivor Series, and then a promo which I think was from Superstars. And it's a really good promo, Travis, but in its subtleties, where Owen keeps referring to leading Brett and Brett following him. And then, I don't know, the Quebecers bit is okay after this, but for me, like, Owen Hart really nailed that promo.
Absolutely. There's a reason this is in my top 3 storylines this company's ever done. I love everything about this storyline. I love everything about this vignette into the match, even with the cheesiness of the Quebecers. At that time, the cheesiness of Johnny Polo and the Quebecers just made you want to see him lose more, so it kind of worked in this match. You're right. The little subtle nuances thrown in ever since the Survivor '93 friction, which we all know, with like the Hart Brothers match, and from like Razor attacking Owen when he was, had the match a year before. It was like they just went full circle with it all building up, and I think that just speaks to Brett and Owen wanted this storyline so bad, so they were invested 100% in making this storyline so detail centric,
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And Bret Hart's dedication to this, I think, it made Owen a main event star. Just out of the blue as well. Because that's when Owen, was on Bret Hart's team at Survivor Series, he was just another wrestler. He'd been in the New Foundation, he'd been in High Energy, he'd been in the Blue Blaze. Really nothing, nobody paid real attention to him. And then suddenly, he's feud. It's the Stone Cold effect that Bret Hart had on Austin. Immediately into a feud with Bret Hart, everyone's taking notice now. Like, you must be a big enough star because Bret Hart's bothering with you.
I always had a soft spot in my heart too. Remember those tights Owen would have that were like Bret's, but they were like blue, same design? I thought those were always cool.
Yes. Yes, I like them very much. And they're a definite addition on my 1993 Owen Hart on Fire Pro Wrestling.
Let's go to the other side of the coin. How crazy is it that Pierre Caroulet is still doing this thing to this very day, and like Ring of Honor, and the character evolution that guy's fucking gone through? I'm pretty sure he's justifiably insane in real life.
I know. I mean, the longevity, applaud him for that. I'm going to be honest, I've not seen much of him in Ring of Honor, and I think he's in Impact now, I think I saw on Twitter.
Yeah.
I've not seen much of him on the indies, but I've heard great things. But can we be really shocked that he's made a name for himself? Because after the Quebecers, obviously, Jean-Pierre Lafitte, it was very good. He showed that in matches against Bret Hart and a few others, when he got the chance. I think the skill and the talent was always there, but obviously when he left WWF properly, Attitude Era, when after the Quebecers came back and then had a bit of a sneeze and then left again, he really got the chance to take the shackles off and show the world that he was a star.
It's so weird that they came back for like that hot minute in the Attitude Era and WCW. That was, and it's
and
like,
what were the blue suits?
Yeah,
like, please, what?
And it's like by then he was like, "Fuck it, I'm just gonna be Jean Pierre Lafitte with my mask, and I'll just be in the Quebecers."
That's it. And he kept the eye patch and he kept the fucking headband and the greasy hair. It's like he didn't bother.
I'm surprised he
just
didn't still
dressed
come out
the
with Bret
same
Hart's
as
fucking jacket at that point. Why not?
That would have been brilliant, wouldn't it? Just a little in joke.
Speaking of brilliant, there's definitely glimpses of
Oh God.
brilliance in this match. I would say 4 guys who were master tag team workers, definitely in
Yeah.
this match.
Absolutely. Absolutely, yeah. I mean, Bret Hart originally started in WWF as a tag team worker. Owen Hart went through 2 tag teams en route to this, and Jacques, part of the Fabulous Rougeau brothers, and obviously Pierre here with the Quebecers. This match was tailored, I think, to all 4 men, and they carried this off with panache. Was it the greatest tag team match we've ever seen? No, but it was the best match on this card. I answered the question earlier today, actually, on Twitter about that, and I think it served more, obviously, Owen Hart's rise to main event status than anything else. But the Quebecers, they played their part perfectly. It was never about them, even though they were tag team champions, but they did everything they were meant to do in order to elevate Owen Hart.
Absolutely, absolutely. And on top of that, Bubba Ray Dudley's favorite fucking thing in the world, the heat. The goddamn heat with this. First, the sympathetic heat for Bret, kayfabe injuring the knee from the crowd. Yeah. All that sympathetic heat building up. With the Quebecers getting the win, by the way, because... And yes, this is a cookie-cutter finish where, like, the partner's like, no, tag me. They come in, and then they get cocky, and then they cost them the pin, right? So after that, obviously, kicking Bret's leg out of his leg. Infamous line. The fans were just there every step of the way. I mean, they laughed, they cried, they just everything in this. The fans were just so taken aback on an emotional roller coaster. And it's no wonder that later in this show, they shit all over Lex Luger when given the choice between him and Bret Hart. What the fuck did they think was going to happen after booking a finish like this? Like that's just like sabotaging Lex Luger.
Exactly.
Good Lord. It ain't like Lex was getting over that great before.
Well, let's sabotage Lex Luger at SummerSlam. The damage was already done there. But when you're putting him up against like such a strong story and a wrestler that people have taken, no pun, to their hearts, then he stood no chance. And it wasn't just that, but the story in this match and, just surrounding it, it was just told to perfection. You really, I'm not going to say you sided with Owen, but you could see, watching this back, where his grievance come from. Had you tagged me, Bret, we'd have been tag team champions by now. It was all there, and yet, to be fair, Owen Hart was the babyface of this story, if you really look at it.
Kinda, yeah. Yeah. And that's another reason I love this storyline so much. I love storylines, too, where it's not just, like, black and white, like good guy, bad guy. There's layers to this, and this is a storyline where people can relate to one side of the fence or the other side of the fence.
Yeah.
And that made for chemistry and beautiful magic, and it'll lead to that, my favorite cage match of all time later in the summer. But I digress. I'm getting way ahead of myself. The match went down. The Quebecers recaptured their titles. The Quebecers... that gimmick is terrible, hindsight. But man, they had a hell of a resume for themselves in these 2 years.
Oh, absolutely. Men on a Mission, Head Shrinkers, multiple-time tag team champions.
Steiners.
If you look at it, they carried the division. They carried this division. There weren't that many like solid, proper tag teams about. All right, Marty Jannetty and 1, 2, 3 people thrown together. But I've always had a soft spot for the Mountie, and obviously the Quebecers were just the Mountie turned up to 10, if you like. Yeah. I don't think the Quebecers get enough credit for what they did when they were together in the WWF first run. Second run was terrible. First run, they deserve more credit than they actually got.
For sure. Absolutely. And we can't leave out, a guy that just did speaking of transformations, the transformation from Johnny Polo to Raven to become that almost unrecognizable as being the same guy, just from a simple wardrobe change. So shout out to Scotty Levy for making Raven work to go from this to that,
Absolutely.
Up next, Matt. I think we're just carrying along. I think didn't Todd Pettengill come down the aisle and be like, "Owen, what the fuck you doing?" Blah blah blah. Right?
He caught him in the locker room, I believe. If he did catch him in the aisle, Travis, then I might have nipped out for him. But he got Owen in the locker room. Owen called Brett a selfish person. He said he had a big ego, and this is like the full heel turn now. There's no going back. But what made this great for me wasn't just Owen's tirade, because he slipped on a few lines, but they actually cut back to the arena, and Brett was being wheeled up the aisle, screaming in agony, with Owen on the Titantron screen shouting back at him, and that was very nicely done.
Yeah, nice touch. Beautiful touch. Another, it reminds me of like the Rumble before with like Sean and Marty or something, and they're looking at something on the screen, and like Marty ran to the back to save Sherry.
Yeah.
I don't know, something like that. No, it was really well done. Really well done. I agree. Where are we at next?
Oh God! Intercontinental Championship: Razor Ramon versus IRS. I've got very little to say about this match, Travis, because this disappointed me. Like, I don't know, a lover who promised me a fun time but didn't deliver.
Two solid workers. Same. Two solid workers. And this is shocking how just abysmal this kind of was. Like, it wasn't awful. It was just, like, so disappointing.
Yeah. Exactly. And it had a story sort of going into it with IRS stealing Razor Ramon's chain. I don't know. And the finish was terrible to this match. The action wasn't great. I feel like the crowd just sort of put up with it, because they knew it was just a stepping stone to the Royal Rumble match that was coming. It just had that house show feel to it. There was nothing spectacular. Nothing stood out. A screwy restart finish. And that was it. That was basically it. This match existed to build Razor Ramon versus Shawn Michaels at WrestleMania.
This match was just basically, when you make a new star and you put a title on him, he's got to start somewhere, and this is his first step along the path to building that resume as an Intercontinental Champion. It's nobody's fault. It's just how it goes sometimes.
Yeah, and that's it. That's all.
It's kind of like what we're getting now with Hangman Adam Page and Lance Archer in AEW. It's his first actual opponent outside of Danielson, so of course it's going to be like a transitional opponent to build up Adam Page and make him look more credible, get those wins.
Yeah, no, I agree. And for people who haven't seen this match, we're not going to dwell too much on it because there's not that much to dwell. Finish-wise, Razor Ramon. I don't know, where the fuck am I? Oh, yeah. So Shawn Michaels comes down, Razor's Edge. Michaels hits Razor Ramon from behind with the Intercontinental title. It takes an absolute ice age for IRS to come around and crawl over Razor Ramon's body, which he could have kicked out 20 times, couldn't he? Let's be honest. And then IRS pins Razor Ramon. The ref counts to 3, awards IRS the Intercontinental title. And then the second referee comes down, tells him what's happened. And before did you notice he didn't even get a chance to restart the match?
Yeah.
Razor Ramon just hit another Razor's Edge. And that's it.
Yep, that was it. No bias at all right there for the babyface.
I don't know. Let's move on from this, Travis.
Your guys' time is much better spent on.
Well.
Yeah, I agree. Their time is much better spent on way more matches these guys had in their career than this. I will say this is one of my favorite, and me and my attires. I love this Razor attire, the baby blues, which we didn't see enough of I wish he would have rocked it more. Up next, Matt. Where are we
Yeah.
at?
We got a little video package for Undertaker versus Yokozuna, and it was one of them. I used to love these, Travis. The Undertaker in his workshop, just building caskets for people. We had this in '92 with Kamala, before the casket match at Survivor Series. And again, Undertaker just building a double wide coffin for Yokozuna to fit in, and Paul Bearer cutting like speech upon speech, and then you just got that sneer from the Undertaker, an axle grinder as well. It's just grinding away, and I used to love these as a kid.
Me too.
I wish I could find these. They probably can on YouTube, but yeah.
He's in like some medieval workshop using ancient equipment to craft the casket. The best one obviously is Merry
Exactly.
Christmas, Yokozuna. Ho, ho, ho. It was great. Good stuff. Scared the shit out of me as a kid.
And
Good stuff.
But as far as Undertaker promos went, they couldn't have done much better. And do look them up on YouTube for anyone new to wrestling who's not seen them, because they are a thing to behold.
They're always the best Undertaker promos, the less is more approach, where Paul Bearer would do all the gabbing and you get the one Undertaker soundbite, and that's all you needed. It was all about the visual with Taker and the atmosphere.
Exactly.
I know.
Yeah, and the smoke billowing around the workshop, and brilliant.
This was an exciting time when I was a kid. This from Survivor Series 93 until this pay-per-view. Ever since they had turned the Undertaker babyface in 1992, you could just see it building. You could just see that fan support getting more and more. And by this time, it had reached a boiling point. Like, it was finally time. Like, they had to put him in. And I'm saying he had to win it, but yeah, they just had to do it because the fans wanted Taker in the title picture. So I would say the majority of the signs in the crowd for this pay-per-view were based off this match. We had the legendary Yoko Tuna sign in this match, which me and my brother still reference to this day. It was great. The big giant rest in peace Yokozuna sign like hanging over the banner in the rafters. The fans wanted Taker so goddamn bad. They really did.
And this, when people ask, like, what's the defining feud or match even of your childhood as a wrestling fan, and this is it. Yokozuna and The Undertaker at the Royal Rumble. This is like the definition of my childhood as a wrestling fan. Like, I've never forgot this match, Travis, ever. It's been, nearly 30 years now, 28 years. I've never once forgotten this match. I've never once forgot the build to it, the big fight feel around it, the ending, obviously. That's the one memory that's always just lingered there at the forefront of my mind.
One thing that we somehow have neglected to mention on this entire pay-per-view, I think it's relevant, I'll just start bringing him up now, because he would manage The Undertaker in the summer. It was Ted DiBiase making his pay-per-view debut. I actually hated him on commentary. I thought he was terrible, and I can see why they never did it again.
I mean, it was a letdown, but even more so because he was a good promo, he was a good talker, and yet you just felt like he was being fed the lines instead of, switch the feed off to the back and just let him talk.
Yes, exactly. Sometimes that happens too. We see it now, where a guy who's a great fucking promo, you know what I mean? And then they just put him on commentary. Chris Jericho, insufferable on commentary. Not DiBiase's nowhere near the cringe that Jericho is, but it just didn't work for me at all.
No, me either. Mr. Perfect, however, was much better at this at the '96 Royal Rumble.
It's all right. I know that.
I said he was better than this. I didn't say he was perfect.
I do know Mr. Perfect used to take
the.
Mr. Perfect used to take the fucking piss out of Shawn Michaels on commentary, though. He would just bury him all the time.
I love that.
What'd you think of the actual match? I know a lot of people, we wax nostalgic on the angle and everything with Taker Yoko, but people don't really talk about the match qualities with these two.
No, all right. So first off, like we've seen better Yokozuna and Undertaker matches than this. There was one on, and don't ask me what compilation it was, Travis. We reviewed a few years ago where it was, I think it was their first match together, and that was fantastic. I don't think it was more than a house show match either, but that was very, very good. This was okay. I'm not going to say it was brilliant. It wasn't. I think I read somewhere a few years ago when I was researching all the facts for the book, like the in-ring time that they actually had together was just over 5 minutes. You know, and everything else was distraction and round the ring brawling. But you know, for what it was and for what the fans wanted out of it, I think it did the job. And obviously, Mark Calloway was off after this to, you know, be with his son who'd just been born. So it did the job. They needed to get The Undertaker off of television convincingly. And obviously, the only way to do that was really to destroy him in front of a worldwide audience to the point where he wasn't just going to sit up and you'd see him again Monday night.
It was such a strong character where they literally had every fucking heel in the company come out to attack him. And by doing that, by doing that though, it just elevated the Undertaker in my eyes, where it took that amount of guys. Like it worked. I didn't think the match was bad either. I thought it was passable. What I do think is bad, even though back then we all loved it, now some things just don't age well. The the little angel Mark Calloway is sending to heaven. This is so bad. I'm sorry. I can't co-sign this. It has not aged well. I don't know what you think.
I mean, do you know what I noticed for the first time in 28 years is when they lift Marty Jannetty dressed as the Undertaker from the back of that screen. He's in full Undertaker gear, and I'm talking about hat and coat that he wasn't bearing. Not only was he not wearing when he went into the casket, he wasn't even wearing it on the video screen. You know, just what a fuck up that was. But I don't know. It's still up there for me as like one of the defining moments of my childhood. Still a classic moment. I see why they kept the lights low, but you know, logically, where would he have come from? That's my only thing. Like I said last week when I was reviewing In Your House 15, we just want it to make sense, Travis. And looking back on it, there's no logic here whatsoever.
Speaking of no logic, you got guys like Adam Bomb and Crush, all very tall men, 300-pounders with long hair, but you choose Marty Jannetty to dress up as the Undertaker. It's so hilarious. Holy shit. I wonder if it was a case where like Marty was like just so high on coke, he just kept pestering him like, "Come on, man, please let me be Taker, man. It looks so fun, man. Don't give it to this Adam Bomb guy. He doesn't love the business, man." I want to believe that's how it went down.
Oh dear. Yes, I mean, it was Marty Jannetty. Anything's possible.
It's insane too. Maybe this speaks to how stupid I was as a kid. Or I don't know what it means, but it's crazy too, like finding that out years later that was Marty Jannetty. As a kid, I just thought it was just some like animatronic dummy. Because as a kid, I'm like, no way that would be a person. But little did we know the negligence of WWF just fucking lifting guys up the rafters. Shit. We get a roll call here on all the heels, that came down here. I know we got Jeff Jarrett, Tenaru, Adam Bomb, Bam Bam Bigelow. I think IRS, fucking Crush, Head Shrinkers.
Let me have a look. I think I've got them all. So yeah, Crush, Head Shrinkers, Bigelow, Kabuki, Tenru. Hang on a sec. Jeff Jarrett, Adam Bomb, Diesel. Diesel was there.
We'll get more to Diesel in a little bit, for sure.
Oh, definitely. Was that it? I think it was. That's the only ones I've got noted down here.
Yeah, I think that was it. I don't know if I should be proud of myself or just like really sad at how much a nerd I am because I just did all that off the top of my head. I fucking goddamn Kabuki's the only one I missed. Fuck you, Kabuki, you asshole.
Well, that's the soundbite I think we're putting on Podbean, isn't it? That fuck you, Kabuki, you asshole.
For anyone that was hoping maybe we'd have Great Kabuki on as a guest one day, I'm sorry I just burnt that bridge. My apologies.
Oh,
Obviously, Yokozuna retains, would go on to Mania against the winner of the Rumble match, and Taker would take time off, like he said, the birth of his son, and would come back later in the summer in the awful Undertaker versus Undertaker. But it's almost time to Rumble, Matt. But before we do, I think we had some filler in here, right?
Yeah, just a montage of wrestlers saying that they're gonna win the Royal Rumble, and then this is my most like genius part. This Doink the Clown, just this tirade of I'm gonna win the Royal Rumble, and then he throws to Dink, like the most awkward segue you could ever get, and he goes to Dink, isn't that right, buddy? And Dink goes, yeah. Fucking hell! Just why did you even let him speak? Terrible.
God bless Tommy Jackson. So good. By this time, the Doink character, it was Ray Apollo.
God. And I'd love. Do you know what?
It was a shell of itself.
Yeah, I'd love to find Ray Apollo one day and have him on this show, just like an hour interview, because that Doink the Clown, like from the end of Matt Bourne to when Ray Apollo left in '95, it's just there's so much we could talk about and so much we could ask him that I think that would be a fantastic interview. I know people would love Bret Hart and Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker, but I want Doink the Clown.
I think there's a clip out there where, like on Conrad Thompson's channel, they interviewed him one time. Shocker, Conrad Thompson got a guest that we couldn't.
Oh, one day. We'll get him one day.
Without that, though, it's time to rumble! It's time for the Royal Rumble! Hell yeah. I miss the old Vince build-up hype videos for this. I miss the, like you said, the assembly line of promos. They were done much better a couple years before this. This is probably one of the weaker rounds of those. Yeah. But for me, realistically, 3/4 of this match was about one guy. And that was building this new star, a guy called, we used to know as Vinny Vegas. This match is all about Diesel for the most part. You talk about the cliche term, a star is born, never rang more true than in this match with Kevin Nash. Holy shit.
Yeah, he came in with a purpose, and by the end of it, you were like, yeah, he could be the next main event star. And of course he was. You know, it all happened for him in the space of, 11 months? Mm-hmm. And judging on this appearance, and he came into this actually with a minor neck injury, because several nights prior, they'd had a Rumble match in Madison Square Garden, which Owen Hart won, and Scott Steiner and Kevin Nash were, I think, either 1 and 2 or like the first 3 in. And Scott Steiner attempted a double underhook on the outside and dropped him on his fucking head. Just why would you even let Scott Steiner attempt that on you? He nearly broke his own neck every time he did a Frankensteiner. Like, you're trying to do that on a 6'8", 6'9" man on the outside. He's not even got the cushion of the ring canvas, just straight onto the concrete.
And what makes it even worse is Kevin Nash is one of his best friends in real life because they're on like that Detroit clique, right? They're Michigan clique. So they're really tight. If you do that to his best friend, imagine what he'd do to some asshole. And we've seen what he would do to the job guys. Good Jesus. How Scott Steiner never got a manslaughter charge with the job guys beyond me, because he was going for blood.
I know.
Those are fucking... I see some of those clips uploaded still on Twitter. I just cringe. And I don't remember the Steiners being that fucking rough as a kid. I guess I just wasn't paying attention. But Jesus, they're worse than the Road Warriors sometimes. You know? I didn't even think that was possible.
Oh, yeah. It's rough around the edges.
Speaking of rough around the edges.
Rough
Around the edges sums up a good portion of this match too. We had some not so great entrants in this. We had there were just some parts of this that were just flat out boring. I think the crowd got that unexpected adrenaline rush from the little Diesel segment, eliminating like Virgil, Bart Gunn, Bob Backlund, just waiting on guys. It was the first time ever, by the way, I think, at a Rumble where we saw a guy just wait on the next competitor, right? Just like running a gauntlet. I think it's the first time they did that.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think that had happened before. I seem to remember something similar after Hogan and Warrior in the 1990 Rumble, maybe. And I know Ted DiBiase sort of did the same up to about number 5 or 6 at the beginning of the 1990 Rumble, but like over an extended period of time. Yeah,
right.
You're right.
Well, you would see like Flair in the 92 like eliminate a guy and then like see who's next. Or like I think it was like 2 guys, like Warlord and Bulldog I think eliminated each other, and then like Flair, and then like Roddy Piper came out. Flair was like, "Oh no," but this was different because it was just like, "Who's next? Next," you know what I mean? And I think another reason why Diesel worked is because he was so different than a lot of that roster. This was just like a common guy who was just a badass. He wasn't a gimmick. He was just like this badass guy. And I think if they would have just kept him, this moment right here encapsulates what the Diesel character should have stayed when he became the champion. This crowd made him a tweener where they were cheering him, right? A little bit were still booing him, but they just thought he was badass. If they would have kept him to not just make him smiley buddies with Shawn Michaels and the fucking 2 dudes with attitude and all that shit, I think it would have worked a lot more than what it did. They strayed from what made it work, and they always fucking do that shit. Look at Rhea Ripley. They gotta have the cookie cutter shit in there. They can't help it. Because they want to appeal to as many fucking eyes as possible, but when you do that, you're watering down that character originally that made it so great to begin with so many times over. It sucks.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with you. And this version of Diesel was, I'm not going to say like it was the best version of Diesel, but I prefer this Diesel to WWF Champion Diesel. Like the attitude and the look. I've never liked the mullet on a bloke before, but you know, it suited Diesel here.
I'm actually sad Brian Pillman Jr. cut his mullet off. That took away like half my interest for Brian Pillman Jr. when he did that. No offense. Shout out to Brian Pillman Jr. You can actually find him right here, cheap plug, on this channel when I interviewed him a couple years ago. So there you go. The other half of this Rumble match, obviously not Diesel. But there was also the beautiful storytelling with, you know, Shawn Michaels obviously in Diesel. For anyone that doesn't know, I don't know how the fuck you couldn't. They were buddies. It was his bodyguard. Shawn Michaels came in. He was the one. I love how they shot it. He gave that little kick that sent Diesel over. Because literally it took all the guys just teaming up eventually to get Diesel out of the ring. And I even think the elimination of Diesel was done brilliantly too. Not just for Shawn, but the fact that it took like 10 guys to get Diesel out of there only enhanced Diesel, in my opinion. So that's taking a win from a loss. And that's good booking. That's how you do it.
Yeah, they used to do the same with Earthquake as well, and they would do the same with Mabel later on in the match. But the fact that Diesel wasn't as big as Mabel or Earthquake, physically, it just made him look more intimidating and more like, you know what, you can see WWF are putting something behind this guy, and you can see why.
For sure. You know who got maybe the most underrated, loudest pop of the night, Matt?
Go on.
I'm not even joking. The return of Greg the Hammer Valentine. That crowd was hyped. As soon as they saw Hammer trotting his shit down, they're like, "Oh fuck yeah, Greg Valentine's back! Hell yeah!"
Yeah. I think it also points to like how thin the roster was in 1994 that you've got to invite Greg Valentine back.
Yeah,
you just, and he didn't look a day older either. Let's be honest.
I don't think he still does, and I don't think it's Botox either. I think that's just Hammer genes. Live forever.
I mean, I'm going to disagree. I've seen a picture of Greg Valentine, and he looks like my nan. Sorry, but he looks. Greg and the Hammer Valentine looks like my nan, and it's disturbing to look at.
I mean, to be fair, he's always kind of looked like my Aunt Helen his entire career. He's just one of those guys that always looks like somebody's grandmother or aunt. We love you, Hammer. Never change. Never cut that hair.
Oh, oh my God.
Man.
How did we get here?
Let's
How the
get it
fuck
back
did
on
we get
track. I'll
here?
fix it. I was talking about it earlier in the show, at the beginning of the podcast. The boneheaded decision to make the fans choose between Lex Luger and Bret Hart. Now, I will say, this is one of the best finishes in the history of not just in all wrestling. This was executed. Perfection's an understatement. This was done so well. This was just how they managed to literally land at the exact same time. And it's not like when we reviewed Rumble 05, and that was a botch, and Cena and Batista just happened to fall. That was an amazing botch, by the way, because it still worked, you know. But this was actually planned. It worked. The way they shot the camera angles was beautiful. And, I mean, this, as lackluster as this pay-per-view was, I could watch the finish of this match any day. I still love the finish. I really do.
And I think it remains one of the classic finishes of all time, not just to a Rumble match, but I think to anything, you know, that they've ever done, especially for fans of a certain age. And I know, like, I'm aging us badly now, Travis, but, you know, we could pick this finish out number one, I think, of anything that happened from, 90 to maybe 2005, 2006, somewhere around there. It's that iconic. But I will say, I was searching the internet as I did, and apparently, I've not seen it, but apparently there is fan cam footage that shows Lex Luger actually touching first.
Oh, leave it to fucking Lex, of course. Leave it to Lex.
I'm not sure whether to botch the finish.
In all seriousness, Lex Luger has totally changed his life around. He's actually one of the nicest guys you could ever meet, and he's actually tweeted me before. He's class act. Totally different guy now. But leave it to Lex to fuck it all up. There's a shock.
Oh my God.
Let me ask you this, because we've talked
Go.
about, because we reviewed like SummerSlam 93, and we've reviewed shit with Made in the USA version of Lex before, but I don't think I've ever asked you this, so if I didn't, let me ask you this. What did European fans, like, did this do anything, when a character always went like Made in the USA, did you guys resent that shit? Or was it like for us, like for me, I still love the British Bulldog, even though he was like the British ambassador, it didn't matter, I just thought he was awesome. Like, did that make you guys resent Luger more? Whereas fucking American piece of shit? Or is it just like, okay, I still like him?
I don't think there was any discernible hatred towards Lex Luger. I think he was just like followed in the footsteps of Hulk Hogan. And obviously Hulk Hogan was massive over here during the whole Hulkamania phase. Obviously I can't speak for everyone. But for me, it was just like, no, he's just another big baby face now. You know, there was no, fucking Americans or anything like that. I think it was just, here's another patriotic main eventer.
I feel like there's so many times in that company's history where, like, I'm just fathoming trying to be like one of you guys and, you know, being a European or just from anywhere else in the world than here and just being like, again, with a U.S. gimmick, like, it would just make me feel just so isolated in a way and just want to tune out. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Yeah.
But credit to you for sticking with the program.
Well, to be fair, there was fuck all else over here, so we had to. We didn't really get much choice.
Let's be totally honest, because I know you. We've been doing this for 5 years. I know you. Even as a kid, I was Team Brett in this choice. I don't think I had one friend that was Team Lex over Bret. Bret Hart was truly the first people's heavyweight champion since Hogan. Before The Rock, it was Bret Hart, the people's champion.
Yeah, that I completely agree with it. And you know what? Oh, you know, like we said earlier, the story that they'd put against Bret Hart here, the injured leg, just the sympathy that he got. I don't recall anyone other than Randy Savage and to a certain extent Shawn Michaels being able to elicit the sympathy from fans that Bret Hart did. You really believed that he could be crippled,
Yeah.
and he was just giving up his career for a shot at the title. And how could Lex Luger ever, you know what I mean? How could he ever compete with that?
He couldn't. And it's I mean, it's like I feel like at the end of the day, fans are always going to go with the everyday man over a guy that looks like Superman when it comes down to it. I feel like the only time it wasn't like that was just the Rock and Wrestling Hogan shit. But I also think that's because Hogan was a mold breaker. He was like the harbinger of that kind of booking. So I think that's why it worked. But since like fans, yeah, they liked Ultimate Warrior, but they weren't fully on that ride like they were with Hogan. They were getting sick of cheering the Superman. John Cena was way more than Batista ever was, because John Cena, yes, he's jacked up, but he's more relatable at the end of the day as an everyman. And I think that's why a Bret character is always going to take over a Luger character in that situation. Always. In any era, I think it would.
Yeah, it's the Batman Superman thing for me. Like Superman's got all these powers, and it's like, well, does that really make you that special? Where's the threat to you? As where Batman is a normal bloke in a suit. Much more relatable. You can believe he hurts, bleeds, could die at any minute.
Tragic
and that's where the Bret
backstory.
Hart magic came through.
Yep, tragic backstory.
Exactly, just a tragedy about him. And there was always, when you think about it, there was always a certain tragedy around Bret Hart as well.
Yeah.
And not personally, obviously, we know about all the Hart family deaths, etc. But the way he used to portray himself, and you believed he could die for his cause at any minute. And I think that's what people latched onto. And he's just fight for the fan. It was so good. Bret Hart was the WWF Sting in many ways, because to a lesser extent than Bret Hart, but on the same lines, Sting did the same thing.
Absolutely, 100%. And they could not learn that lesson with Bret either, because a year later they did the same fucking shit. They went babyface at the Rumble with Diesel, and Bret was coming off that angle of Owen throwing the towel in and lying to his parents and pretending to be upset. Yeah. So again, what are you going to feel sympathetic for Diesel against a 6'2" guy like Shawn Michaels? That was a hard enough sell as Diesel was the babyface in that, but to throw Bret on top of it, of course the fans cheered Bret more in that match with Diesel. The fans always grab it. The only time they didn't do that with Bret is WrestleMania 12 with Shawn Michaels. And I think that was just a case of the fans were ready for Shawn Michaels to finally win the big one. I don't think it was a slight against Bret. I just think it was more of a passing the torch moment. You know what I mean?
Yeah, they were ready for change.
And then by the time we got to Steve Austin, I can't compare that because everything was changing by then. You know what I mean? It was totally different.
Yeah. No, I totally get you. The only mistake I think they made in this Royal Rumble match was, the whole Bret Hart, Owen Hart story. All right, keep the ending with Lex Luger, but why not put Owen Hart in the Final Four rather than Fatu? And then you've still got even more of a story going into WrestleMania if Bret eliminates Owen. You know what I mean? And then sort of stumbles to a finish with Lex.
Maybe it could have been a case too, where like they didn't want to give away too much in one night, and they didn't want him to touch until Mania. Could have been that.
I mean, I understand that, but then I think Owen Hart, right? All the momentum in the world and all the heat in the world coming out of that tag team match, an hour before, if that, and then he just gets chucked over the top rope in 6 minutes or so by Diesel, and it's like, oh, okay. There's so much more Owen Hart could have given in this match to, the story with Bret and going into WrestleMania that I don't know. Bret didn't even have to eliminate him. You know what I mean? All Brett would have had to do was duck as Owen charged at him
Yeah.
and let his own momentum carry. Yeah, they didn't even have to have them touch in the match. Just, I don't know. For me, that was the only downside looking back on it.
Right on. And with that, guys, our hands are clean. We can wipe them, clean the slate. That's Royal Rumble 94. That's a retro review this month that's not in your house. Coming away from Providence, Rhode Island, Matt, what did you think and what do you grade this show?
I mean, I'm going to have 2 grades. Like, nostalgia grade, obviously, it's an A because there's so many moments from this event that, will stick with me forever. But actual quality, C. I think the only thing that really stood out, wrestling wise, quality wise, worth watching wise, between the ropes, was that tag team match.
I'm going to give it the exact same grade. I mean, I'm not. I know that's so interesting, guys, but I agree totally with what Matt said. I think these Rumble matches, even if they were bad back then, they're still a lot easier to watch than a bad one that's modern. Like, I would rather watch the Rumble 95 than 2014 any fucking day of the week. Just for that nostalgia and just the silly characters. And it was just more fun. The Rumble was supposed to be fun at the end of the day. And some of these Rumbles of modern times, it just felt like torture. Like, we were having some of those Rumbles with just like Kane and Corporate Kane and Big Show just waiting on guys, Diesel style. And it was like just torture. Holy shit. But then again, the Rumble from a couple years ago where McIntyre's one's been the best Rumble in 10 years. So they're still capable of booking a good Royal Rumble match. And I hope the Royal Rumble match this week or tonight, whenever you listen to this episode, I hope this one is good. I hope it is. With that, Matt, one more time, before we get out of here, where can everyone catch you?
You can catch me on Twitter at BruiserMate. Go to unionsmack.bigcartel.com for all your Hibiki TMD merchandise. See, I always fuck this bit up. The last line of the night. For all your Hibiki TMD merchandise need, prowrestlingtees.com/Union Smack for the official Union Smack t-shirt, lulu.com for both of my books. All the good stuff. All the links are on the Podbean site on little blue words if you click on them at the top, and then go to podbean.com. No, you don't. You see, that's twice I fucked this up, Travis. I should write it all down. unionsmack.podbean.com. And just click on wherever you prefer to listen to your podcasts. And we are everywhere now, including Audible, including Anchor, including Stitcher. And if you're not sure, go to @UnionSmack on Twitter, and it's the pinned tweet. Everywhere we are is linked on there as well. And next week, we should say, Travis, there's going to be no actual review show. Usually we do NXT UK on the first week of the month, but we're actually going to do our new Q&A next week. We've got a smorgasbord of questions to answer, so we're going to do that next week. NXT UK the week after, and then we're back on the In Your House trail third week of February. I forgot where the fuck we are in 2022 already. But yeah, that's the schedule, so stick with us. Thank you very much for all the downloads, all the comments, all the questions. Keep your questions coming in. I think we'll say like the cut-off for questions will be Tuesday night, so we can prepare them for when we record next week. But obviously keep them coming in, and if your question's not in time for next week, and we don't answer it on next week's podcast, then we will answer it at the end of February.
Absolutely. And also absolutely blown away and flattered at the amount of questions you sent us. Love it. And yeah, excited to do our very first Q&A episode next week right here on Union Smack. And as always, hit that red button right down below. Subscribe here on YouTube, Hibiki TMD, all the goodness, retro gaming, heavy metal podcast, pro wrestling, everything nerdy, and in between right here. Until next week, the Union Smack Podcast. Cheerio, mates.